Welcome to another episode of the F.I.N.E podcast, where a couple of knuckle-dragging veterans unpack the world of mental health as unprofessionally and informally as possible. I am Eric Peterson.
And I'm Brad Stosiek.
And today's episode is all about alcoholism. We're going to talk about what alcoholism is, how the DSM defines alcohol use disorder, why it's a problem in the military community and civilian communities alike, and some resources you can use to help you or someone you may know that might be struggling with it. And today we're going to have some help from our friend, fat family member, fellow knuckle dragger, team leader, and veteran in charge of our new Fat Fit program, Robin Senesac.
Hey, how's it going?
So sit back and relax as we do our best to take you from being freaked out, insecure, neurotic, and emotional to truly being fine about putting that bottle down.
Welcome to the I'm Fine podcast with your freaked out, insecure, neurotic, and emotional hosts, Eric Peterson and Brad Stosiek.
We did it. Hey, Robin.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, man. How are you?
Not too bad.
I'm happy you're here for a lot of reasons. I'm happy you're here because you reached out early. I don't know how far into the podcast we were. And you would send a message to me. You would text me every once in a while and be like, hey, man, I just listened to you would say really meaningful things, like compliments. Like you'd be like, hey, man, I listened to this podcast, your podcast episode about blah, blah, blah. And I loved this. And I love that you said that, or that joke was really funny. And I love, hearing those things. We were just talking about in the very beginning when you were talking about how you've been listening to this podcast. Like, dude, it feels really good.
It does.
To hear that.
It really does.
Because it's like sometimes I almost forget that anybody's listening.
Yeah.
So it's just like, we're just hanging out.
We are.
Just talking about mental health and why we're fucking crazy in my basement. You know what I mean? And then when you would say stuff like that, it always really meant a lot. So I'm really happy you're here for that. I'm happy because you do so much stuff with fat that I really appreciate. And I'm going to ask you some questions about if I don't forget later. But you were watching fat for a little while before you got involved.
Yeah,
you know
because
what I mean?
Nonprofit organizations have been kind of hard for me to really take a hold of because I've been burnt a couple times. I won't use one in particular, but I got burnt quite bad, and I'm like, no, I can't do it, especially when it comes to veterans. That's something that really needs more attention in society.
Well, yeah, some nonprofits have got, there's a spotlight on you, understandably so, when you're a nonprofit organization. And unfortunately, and I've talked about it before on this show, like I've met some people that run organizations, and you meet them and you're like, you're the one that's in charge? Like, you would do so great, but you suck. Like, it's weird. But and unfortunately, some organizations have burned people too. I'm really happy you're here for just those reasons. So thank you. Would you mind giving us a brief introduction of who you are, both on the civilian side, military side, and fat?
Well, now I'm a father, a husband, a brother. Hang on.
It's okay.
At 17 years old, I joined the military.
Yeah.
So that's where a lot of my stuff comes from.
Yeah.
I work my ass off at work. Well, I don't really work. I'm on the time clock. That's a different story. With fat, it's I got involved just because I wanted to help somebody out. And then we started doing the fitness stuff. And I'm like, hey, I kind of like that. But then you gave me a little bit more confidence, I think, by saying, hey, I'd like you to do this. And I'm like, wait a minute, you're trusting me to do what?
Hell yeah.
And what the hell, let's go.
Yeah, I'm that guy.
So, you, I guess, have more confidence in me than I have in myself.
But
then I can honestly say, has built my confidence. So
that's great.
What the heck?
Well, for my position, and I do, I'm not trying to be cocky here, but I do take some pride in that I work hard and I try to see the best in everybody, and I try to recognize people for their strengths. And when I see somebody that's just good at anything, I just make a mental note. I'm like, wow, this person's really good at blank. Like if I ever had a question about this or I needed to find somebody, like I would go to that person about that. And you had a drastic weight loss, right? How many pounds did you? I mean, in a good way. It was an amazing, transformative way.
I mean, I only went from like 300 pounds at 5'7" to 175, I think was my lightest. I mean, it's nothing.
You lost a person.
I lost a person. Yeah.
You lost 1.5 Jonas Brothers, if that's still relevant. Dude, that's insane. That's amazing. Crazy. At what age?
I started my real transformation in probably 2012 because I just was tired of being, for lack of better words, a fat ass.
Yeah.
And I got
We're not offended. Brian.
In 2013, got to February in 2013, I was 275, and I was like, man, I can't get any farther. I went into the local gym, and I'm like, I need help. And I got with one of our, local gym owner, Mike Newman.
Yep.
He was my trainer.
Mike.
I call him my shiny penny trainer for many reasons, but that's okay. And he got me in February of 2013, February to October, I went from 275 to 185, stepped on stage as a physique competitor. Mm-hmm. And I was like, hey, I kind of like this. I should have done this, 20 years ago. But
that's so impressive, though.
Why do it when you're young and can recuperate? Yeah. Do it when you're old and beat up.
Yeah. So, and that's amazing. And so awesome. Watching you do that, and then knowing that we had gyms in our area that wanted to like offer things for veterans and do stuff with us, I was like, who better to run it? And you're also a mentor for Veterans Treatment Court with me, which I also really appreciate because you do a phenomenal job with that too. We'll share this one brief success story without naming names, but there's a gentleman in Veterans Court right now that Robin is a mentor to, and I'm also a mentor to. And he just had his success. He was struggling with gambling addiction for a while, and he was able to be paid, like get paid from his job and not gamble. And he was so excited that he resisted the urge to gamble, that the next morning he texted me and called me, and he was like blowing up my phone, and he was in such a good mood. He was like, dude, I didn't gamble. Like I didn't do it. And it feels good. And he goes, I didn't want to smoke. I didn't want to drink. I didn't want to do anything. I did the right thing, and it feels good doing the right thing. And oh my God, man, that's like the best award.
Absolutely.
Not just for him, but and I told him this, I was like, bro, when you win, we all win. When your wins are our wins. Like and I was so excited for him. I told him, though, he definitely needs to hit everybody else up. Well, I didn't say that. He did that. I didn't tell him to hit anybody else up, but he called you.
Yes,
he called
did.
Nick, who runs Troops on Trails. And I think he called like one other guy who was in Vets Court because he was so happy. And I was like, dude, I love that. Like that kind of stuff recharges me, because I'm like, dude, that was such a big win. And you helped him out a lot as his mentor, talking to him, especially when you're working out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's just, you're so good at that. And I just am so very appreciative of everything that you do.
Oh, I appreciate you.
Thank you.
That's...
And now your time in the military, and we've had conversations about this, some really good conversations about this, I think, because before I get ahead of myself, can you talk a little bit about your time in the military?
17 years old, I joined between my junior and senior year of high school, went down basic training in Fort Benning, Georgia.
Yeah.
Only place to go. But
on the infantry, baby.
But then after my senior year, went back down, did my stuff. I served 10 years between National Guard and Active Army. And that's kind of where all my stuff comes from.
Yeah.
And actually, some of my drill sergeants still ring true in my head. And that's the reason I'm able to push through some of the stuff that I can.
Yeah.
Because I literally see their face and go,
yeah,
he would kill me right now if I was, slacking.
Yeah.
And I still hear him. I still see him. And I tell people, I'm like, you don't know what it's like.
Right.
And like I said, I didn't have a phenomenal, up till I'd say about a year ago when I really got into fat, I never put the word vet with my name.
And why is that?
Because I served 10 years and my number was never called to go serve overseas. All my trainings I've had, kind of like training for playing in the Super Bowl, but watching from the sideline, it just never helped my mental,
And if you've talked to me about that, and we've talked about that in a group setting, and immediately, whenever you've talked about that in a group setting, there has been at least like 2 other vets in the room that are like, I feel the exact same way.
Guilty.
Brad's raising his hand. Like, you're not the only one to feel that way.
No.
And one of the reasons why I love you being involved with FAT is because you've met a lot of other veterans that are in a similar position. Like, it doesn't matter to me for whatever it's worth. It doesn't. Like, if you signed up, you did what you were supposed to do, and then you finished, we're the same.
Yeah,
now, granted, I reserve that special top tier category for like Sergeant Alwyn Cash, if you don't know, Medal of Honor, recent Medal of Honor recipient, like those special operators, those guys who, Kyle Carpenter, all those types of guys. You know what I mean? Like, those are like different operator. They did something crazy in service. Yeah. But everybody else like me, we did our jobs. We did our job, whatever our job was, and then we finished and we came home. It does not matter, in my opinion, whatever you did. You did what you did.
I mean, I'm not going to say I'm the most squared away soldier. I was about as squared away as a soup sandwich.
Yeah, I was not squared away.
It's just one of those things. Some people know what I mean. Some people don't know what I mean. But soup sandwich is pretty much the basics.
Yeah. and then you got out and you did 10 years and you got out in 2001.
Yes, 2001.
Okay, all right. Yeah.
That's where a lot of my mental struggle comes from. I got out in February.
Yeah.
And then September 11th happened.
Right.
And I was a newly married man.
Yeah.
One of the most deep conversations I've ever had with my wife was, hey, I'm going back. No, you're not. You just got married, big boy. And I've already had firefighter certifications, EMS certifications. I was a truck driver, and I was still 11 Bravo qualified.
Yeah.
So she's like, yeah, the ink wouldn't dry, dude, and you'd be gone. And I'd probably never see you again because you're crazy.
Right.
So,
And if I can ask for the audience, are you still with that woman?
Absolutely.
I think you made the right decision, my friend.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Pretty much.
Good on you, bro. That's awesome. But that survivor's guilt and stuff like that, it's like a little bit of survivor's guilt, a little bit of imposter syndrome, I feel like.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And again, it's not fair to me that another veteran feels that way. And that's why I always tell you, dude. That's why anybody that I know has told any other veteran that felt that way. Same with you. When you would speak negatively about your time in service, you know what I mean? And you always feel that way with the next group. Like, not, I don't know, next group isn't the right word, but like, for example, when I got back, and I've told this story, the first time I was working on the ambulance, I think I was doing my internship, I don't remember, but we got a World War II veteran, and he was talking to me, and we were in the hospital, I believe, and he was just like, did you ever see any of those IEDs over there? And I was like, puffing my chest out, I was like, yeah, I saw one. You know what I mean? Told him my little story. And he's like, oh, that's pretty crazy, man. And I was like, yeah, no big deal. And he's like, so when I was in the submarine, it got hit by a torpedo. And he's like, 900 went into the water, 600 came out. Well. And then the sharks set in. And I was like, what? And I was just like, I'm sorry, you win. I'm a fucking, there's nothing I can do to that. Like, I didn't feel like I compared after that. Well, that moment was a necessary moment of me eating some humble pie because I needed it. But like, I see the special operations community. I'm like, I'm not those guys. When I was a contractor, I was in the Army National Guard, right? That was my time in the military. And when I'm working in the contracting community, some of those guys are like Rangers and Force Recon and all this other stuff. And I'm like, fuck, I don't fucking belong here. You know what I mean? And I just think it's just not fucking fair to make yourself feel that way.
You know, the funny thing is Brad is the one that really got me to come to terms with it, because I hear him and Marines, even though I was in the Army, even though I was National Guard, Marines have always been, in my brain, the elite, man.
Oh,
but I say that.
You're saying better.
I say that
gross
because of I was going to be a Marine. The Marines never called me back.
Because you can read.
Well,
Like,
right.
we don't
I
want
think
this
that's probably
guy.
why they didn't call me back. But I mean, that's a different story. And then I know how to color inside the lines. I don't eat my crayons, and it's just one
He
of
just
those things.
crumpled up his perfectly colored house, and they're like, "This guy, he's not fucking marine material." Like, yeah.
And then when Brad said he had that issue, I'm like, wait a minute, Brad? Brad's like one of those guys that I'm like, man, he's going through some shit.
Yeah.
And then I hear the podcast, and I'm like, oh, Brad felt the same way I did. Wow.
I've seen some things.
Before. I mean, not
That's
now.
a beautiful thing.
You know, that's it.
And we've talked about this. It's like, man, it's crazy how if you allow yourself to become vulnerable enough to talk about your insecurities, talk about your fears, talk about that stuff, like other people that you wouldn't expect are like, you deal with that? I also deal with that. And you're like, oh, like, it's not like it helps me with my problem, but it makes me feel better knowing that I'm not the only one with that problem. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely.
Just makes you feel not alone. And that's nice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
a beautiful thing. So that's really cool.
That's awesome.
That's really cool.
Thank you for saying that. That really meant a lot. Thank you.
Yeah,
Okay,
man.
It's
So
awesome.
on today's episode, we're going to talk about alcoholism. Yay! Something that the military community is not very familiar with at all. Like when I asked you about this episode and you were just like, you were like, I don't know if I'm going to find anything. We were talking about looking stuff up. I was like, yeah, like we've touched on alcoholism a little bit here and there, but we haven't like dug into it. We wanted to do some episodes specifically about different types of addiction, and alcoholism is the most prominent one. So we wanted to talk about that one too. Before we get much further, Brad, can you read the sources for this episode, please?
I sure can. They are the DSM-4, DSM-5, and the DSM-5-TR, the National Institute on Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism, the United States Census Bureau, penmedicine.org, and veteranaddiction.org.
Thank you, Bradley.
You're welcome.
So how was alcohol introduced to you guys, both military and civilian?
Well, I grew up with one of my best friend's dad was a severe alcoholic. I mean, he couldn't go through a day without being drunk. So I said, nope, I'm never going to drink in my life. Liar. And just watching him stumble through life in itself, it was hard for me. But then I become 17 and joined the military, and we may have toasted once or twice or 20 or so times. Anyway, but that's how it was introduced to me mostly and my mother and father didn't drink around me. I think they drank when they were younger, you know?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I do know that my pops told me years ago before those kids came around that he drank and fall off his motorcycle and stuff like that. But I think after we came around, he didn't have enough time to drink. He was always working.
Right. What about you, Brad?
Pretty early, man. My parents drank. We had like birthday parties and there was alcohol there. And there was.
Was it good, bad?
I mean, it was just like social drinking, like just like 80s parents drinking. You know what I mean? Like it's a birthday party, kids. It doesn't matter what it was. There was some kind of like wine coolers and beer. What you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was kind of like that. And then in the military, my first experience, I ended up going to a restaurant where my mom worked, and one of the people who had like some power in the town bought me a drink, and I was like, "I'm sorry, I can't drink that. I'm only 18." And he goes, "Well, here's my card. If they say anything, tell them to talk to me or whatever." Because he was like, "Anyone who serves our country can have a beer." And and then from there it was just like drink.
And I agree with that guy to a degree. If I didn't see as many issues between the veteran community and alcohol afterwards, it's like it's thrust at you. But it's also, if you're old enough to die for your country,
that's true.
You're also old enough to have a beer.
That's true, but brain development, dude. Your brain doesn't stop developing until 21. I mean,
which is also true. Which is also why I don't know. That's a hard argument. I get it. For sure. But for me, sorry, were you saying anything else?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
For me, so it wasn't brought up to me in a negative way, in that my mom never drank because she had a traumatic experience as a kid, like because of her parents. Like her father, I think. And alcohol was an issue. And like, so she just stayed away from it. So she never drank. And my dad is the social and the like stereotypical like 80s type of drinker. Like he would do, well, my grandparents always used to do a cocktail hour where they'd have like 1 or 2 drinks in the afternoon. My dad, he would go out and drink maybe recreationally, but he would only have 1 or 2 beers. If it was like a mixed drink, he would have like 1. He would drink water and other things too. He never got abusive, yelling, screaming, like none of that stuff. I've seen him drunk twice. Once was when I was younger, and he was at a golf course golfing and drinking, because that's what a lot of people do at golf courses.
Yeah.
And he got drunk. So somebody brought him home, and he wasn't mean or anything. He went to the bathroom and then he went to bed. I just remember that. I was like, oh, I've never seen my dad drunk before. And the only other time was after we spread my mom's ashes. We stopped at a brewery, Leinenkugel Brewery, on the way home from my family's cabins, and we were sitting there just talking, father, son, about some shit. You know what I mean? And we had flights, because they do flights there.
Oh, nice.
Of like 6 beers, the little mini ones. And so like before I knew it, we had like 2 flights gone, and my dad and I were having this like sort of soppy like talk, but it was good. And it was just it was a beautiful moment that I got to have. You know what I mean? But it was never pushed on me. It was never forced on me. My dad let me try a margarita when I was like 11 or 12. He was like, because that's what like 80s type parents did. They're like, here you go, try this.
Like, take a sip. Yeah.
And I was like, all right, this tastes kind of gross. And my dad's like, yeah, I know. And then he let me try a beer. And I was like, this tastes gross. He's like, I know. Yeah. So I didn't really care that much. And then I got in the military, and and just also being 19, 20.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're just going to seek that stuff out anyway at house parties and stuff like that. And that's when I started drinking. But because of the environment I was raised in, and like my family gatherings, nobody ever got drunk and made a fool of themselves. Like none of that ever happened. If you saw somebody get kind of buzzed, they just become kind of giggly and funny. They wouldn't be like rude or mean or anything. And so it was kind of positive. So you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize how bad alcohol was for people, how many struggled with addiction, and how many people's lives it has legitimately ruined. You know what I mean? Has alcohol ever been a problem for either of you guys?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you elaborate a little?
Well, let's see. Maybe one of my first problems was when I was going through a divorce.
Yeah.
And this is just one of my incidents. I was being stupid. My soon-to-be ex-wife was at a bar with a gentleman, and I was being an asshole, plain and simple. Got drunk. And it was wintertime out. I wear cowboy boots.
What could go wrong?
Right, exactly. And I wear cowboy boots, and I go busting out the bar. I'm out there with one of my best friends, and I go busting out the bar, and feet go out from underneath me, slam my head on the ground. And before I did that, I did a few things that I probably should have been arrested for, but didn't get caught because of him. He's like, yeah, we got to go.
Yeah.
But that just kind of was the first step in knowing that there might be a problem here.
Right.
But did I stop? No.
Right.
Why would you? It's,
right.
Concussions and stuff like that.
Well, in that age, you just feel like you're, what's the word? Just like
Invincible.
Invincible.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And you think you can do whatever you want. You're going to be fine. And you still don't understand the repercussions of things or the responsibility, the weight of responsibility that you're going to have. And yeah, I mean, it gets pretty hairy sometimes.
Yeah.
What about you, Brad?
Yeah. Also in the military.
Yeah.
Dude, we'd drink every day. By the end of the weekend, it would be you take the garbage out, and clink, all just bottles. And then it got so bad, I would go to work on Saturday because as cooks, we obviously didn't get a lot of time off. So when I worked on a Saturday, I would go in drunk, like still drunk from the night before.
Yeah.
And they just like, dude, just fry the hash browns. Yeah. Like you smell like I drank a lot.
What did you guys do to overcome that?
Got married.
Hey, that's great.
No, I mean,
some people make them drink more.
I mean, really though, I got married and had a family, and I kind of grew up. I mean, it took me a long time, but I grew up and realized hey, I've got people to take care of and people that love me, and I can't be acting stupid.
So I mean, for that almost seems like the normal trajectory of, I would say, the average person, in that you get into your teenage years, early 20s, you want to have fun, you want to test the boundaries, you want to figure shit out, you get fucked up, whatever, you know, it's like your Rumspringa, right?
Yep.
And then after that, you're like, all right, I got to do adult shit now. You know what I mean? You realize, and that's impressive. That's awesome that he didn't hold you down. You know what I mean?
No, yeah.
What about you, Robin?
Mine was more than likely hitting a bridge at 120 mile an hour with a pickup truck.
That'll do it.
Yeah, you know.
That could do it.
And the funny thing was that I wasn't even drunk. I had literally only had one drink.
Yeah.
But I had worked like 90 hours that week. So the alcohol literally just kind of lowered my reaction time.
Yeah.
Somebody cut me off. I overcompensated, hit the bridge. Luckily, I was not injured. The truck may have been small, broke all 4 rims and destroyed the truck that I was about to redo. I was rebuilding this truck from the ground up. It was my dream truck. And I was like, hey, stupid, you probably shouldn't do this no more. And I literally put it down almost instantly after. No, that would be wrong. For the most part, that's the starting of my major stuff.
Yeah. Well,
I have a few other stories that I'll probably share throughout the thing that involves me being married at the time. And
well, like, as traumatic as an event can be, for it to be that traumatic, like, if you hit a bridge at 120 miles an hour and you had a beer, you know what I mean? If I got out of that car, I'd be like, you know what? Shouldn't drink anymore.
Yeah.
I'm probably done now.
Oh,
you know what I mean? This
absolutely.
should be it. So yeah, that would definitely be an awakening. But, and so you said you were continuing, you stopped a bit.
Yeah. And that was actually before we were married. I was with the woman I'm with now.
Right.
And luckily she stuck with me.
Yep.
After, I kept drinking a little bit here and there, nothing major. The one I probably would say that really woke me up was, come home the weekend after I got married. I went out with a couple buddies of mine. They, I couldn't get the key in the door at the house. You know, my buddy drops me off and says, takes off. Yeah. You know, thanks, buddy. Appreciate it. I go in the house, and the house we were living at the time had stairs that you go up and you have to duck to turn to go into the rooms. Well, I didn't duck. I went up the stairs, hit my head, knocked myself out. And that was Saturday night. Sunday morning, my wife got up, made sure I was still breathing, stepped over me, went downstairs, went to church, and I think I was probably still laying there when she got home from church, but I was still breathing. So, you know, a few other things like that. And then she's just like, you can't keep doing this. You're a married man now. You know, all these guys are still single. They're out drinking. Stop it. And because of her, I mean, and it's going to sound weird, she can tell me when now, because I can still socially drink every once in a great while. Yeah. But I do not do that because I know your emotional state will really mess with you. But she's the one that says, hey, you know what? Yeah, sure, go and have a drink tonight. But then there's other nights she's like, yeah, it's probably not a good idea.
Because she knows.
Absolutely. Because if it wasn't for her.
trying to help.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's a beautiful thing.
It's awesome.
And my problem, I probably realized that I had a problem the second time my wife told me I could not go back to Vegas anymore. It sucks because there's a lot of terrible stories with alcohol. There's some funny ones too. There's also funny stories with alcohol. Yeah. Okay. Especially if you're in the fucking military.
Oh yeah.
But like the 2 times that I went to Vegas and got way too drunk and did way too many activities, I'll say, and then there was another time where there was an incident in New Orleans, and my wife also said I can't go to New Orleans anymore. And I realized I was going too hard, and a big reason why was because I felt like I missed out a lot because I turned 21 in Fort Bragg, North Carolina, mobbing to go to Afghanistan. So I was like, and if you're in the National Guard, before you mob, like, okay, if you go to mob, I forget how long mob was. I forget what the fuck it stands for, but it's just getting ready to deploy. And I think it was like 2 months, 3 months, something along those lines. And then we had our annual training before that, which was like typically 2 weeks, but because we were mobbing, it was like a fucking month. And so like we were going. So, you know, I was 20 and then I turned 21 for brag, go overseas, deploy, come back. And I felt like I missed out on stuff. And I felt like so you feel like you're missing out. 2, it's the adrenaline or whatever, or the depression, or whatever, or an amalgamation of all of those things. So I'm just like going, and I would go out and get so drunk, and it wasn't good. It was a terrible look.
Yeah.
You know, I did dumb shit, and I can chalk it up to me being in my early 20s. If I did any of that stuff now, oh my God. Like, no, dude. You know what I mean? Like, I would be so embarrassed of the dumb shit that I did before.
Dude, I had a problem. I couldn't stop drinking when I started.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that, but I would just drink until I just blacked out.
It's easy to stop paying attention.
Yeah.
It's easy to go into cruise control, and then you fast forward and you're like 6 months later or some shit, and you're just like progressively getting worse. And then to deal with that pain, you're drinking more. You're like, fuck, this isn't good. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's scary. So I wanted to talk about, I wanted to define it first. So to define alcoholism, it is a medical condition. Although it may begin with a person making a willful choice to drink, the brain undergoes changes as a result of prolonged alcohol misuse. Now, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Health Disorders, or DSM, as I'll be referring it to, gets updated as the years go on with new editions. The current edition is the DSM-5 TR, and the TR stands for text revision. Before that was the DSM-5, and then, understandably so, before that was the DSM-4. Now, the DSM-4 described alcohol disorders as 2 distinct disorders, alcohol abuse and alcohol dependence, with specific criteria for each. The DSM-5 then integrated both disorders into a single disorder called alcohol use disorder, AUD. And it's got mild, moderate, and severe subclassifications. So AUD is a brain disorder that encompasses a broader spectrum of conditions, including alcohol abuse, alcohol dependence, alcohol addiction, and alcoholism. As a medical condition, AUD is characterized by an impaired ability to stop or control alcohol use despite adverse social, occupational, or health consequences. So do you guys think alcoholism is a disease?
Absolutely, I do.
I'm kind of torn because in my brain, and it's not a very big one, but it's in the brain. It's a disease to me is something that needs medication to cure.
Right.
A disorder can be treated with counseling or whatever else, but disease itself, I'm not sure. I'm not saying it is, not saying it's not. I'm just kind of torn because the lack of knowledge to it. That's why.
That's fair. That's an honest response.
I think that's more than anything. I don't have the knowledge behind it. So in my common thinking of brain, it's, well, diseases need medication, you know? So. Yeah.
Well, so Brad, and you said yes.
I do.
Why do you think that?
In the sense of like a disease, I think it spreads like a disease. For one, you know, I think like that for starters. And also I think there is like the amount of treatment and rehab, and you can get medicated for being too drunk. You know what I mean? Like you can
have to detox you or put you on something so alcohol tastes bad.
Yeah. Sure. So you need to like, so I think in that sense, I think it is a disease.
And I also understand Robin's questioning of it in the way that you're questioning it. I don't like when people are like alcoholism and addiction is not a disease, and they say it from this like privileged perspective. It's not understanding. You're just like, well, just stop drinking. You know what I mean? It's like that mentality. Like alcoholism's not a disease. Just stop drinking. They made a decision to do it. Like I've heard that a lot, and I get it to a degree. And there is, again, that percentage of the population that has that fucking mindset to do that kind of stuff. As far as like, you know, being able to be an alcoholic and then just stop drinking all of a sudden. But a lot of people aren't those people. A lot of people struggle with it, and then it affects them and it affects their families. And because kids grow up seeing it, sometimes now they're more likely to do it. So now it's affecting all of these lives, potentially ruining all of these lives. Like, yeah, dude, that's a disease or something. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I agree. But what do you guys think are some warning signs that alcohol use is starting to become a problem?
I would say when your main consciousness is, I got to drink. Hey, I'm going to go out and have a beer after work. Beer's no big deal.
Right.
But when it's just get to work and that's all you're thinking about, you're not thinking about the job. You're thinking about, hey, what's going to happen after work? Then that some kind of jobs are like, yeah, I need to drink to do the job. And that's another thing.
Right.
Speaking with my best friend's dad, he was drunk on the job a lot.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think there was ever a time that I seen him that he wasn't drunk, but he was a functioning alcoholic.
Was he like in the trades?
He did a little bit of everything because he did a lot of stuff in our hometown.
Yeah.
So the person he worked for was his drinking buddy.
Right.
So that helps too, you know.
Right.
So they kind of protected each other. And then we worked together in an industry in town where we made cabinets. And I got a buddy I work with now. So, do you remember when? Yeah, I remember that. The paint gun was clogged.
Yeah.
And my buddy's dad looks, says, man, this thing's clogged. Pulled the trigger and full of paint. His face. It was
just like a cartoon.
Yeah.
Nice.
And, you know, so.
And he was drunk?
And he was drunk. I mean, it was every day, but I mean, he was never a mean drunk. He was just a functioning alcoholic. I never knew it when I was growing up. I'm like, what the heck? And then when I really got to hanging out with my buddy and I found that out, and I'm like, he's almost stepped on my head when we were younger, you know, walking through the living room when we're sleeping over, you know, on the weekends and stuff. I was like, man.
It's so accepted in certain communities. It makes it so much harder when you're at a job where people are just drunk. And it's like, I have friends in the trades, not picking on them. Love the trades. Love everybody that works in the trades. Yeah. But just my friends that work in the trades get fucking drunk. And I'm like, you guys are just getting drunk and building America's infrastructure. Like, holy shit. You talk to some guys and they're able to drink. They drink all day and then they go to the bar afterwards. And now if you're a new person to that team, to that job, to that company, and people are drinking all day, if you want to fit in, what are you going to do? Then you start drinking. Like, you know what I mean? It's easy to see how that stuff can get out of control sometimes.
I mean, I had a partner when I was on the railroad. He'd come in, hey man, I'm going to go act like I'm working on this car and just let me know when the supervisor's coming. I'm like, dude, I can smell you when you walk in the door. Can you not do that? You're my partner. That's my life on the line. So there's a lot of times I'd be like, I tell you what, you go over there and sit in that truck, sleep it off. I'll go do the work for now.
Yeah.
But you need to clean it up because this is my life on the line, you know? So.
And to your point, like when it becomes such a problem, when alcohol takes up so much of your mind, that you're at work thinking about it, before work you're thinking about it, you always want it. You know what I mean? Like that's a for sure good warning sign. Brad, what do you think? Any other ones?
I think just daily consumption.
Yeah.
Like drinking every day.
Yeah.
I feel like they would get like agitated or on edge, like if they don't have a drink, like they're not themselves or themselves.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And that's really trying to go back to 6th grade health class and think of
Drugs are bad.
Drugs bad.
I went to it was like a camping event in a bunch of cabins with a bunch of people, and there was one person that went with us that waited, and older person, this wasn't with friends, this was like a bunch of family and some friends and stuff like that. There's one person there that was waiting until it was a certain time so they could start drinking. It was early, you know what I mean? And they would like wait, and they would sit there and like watch the clock, and I'm like, holy fuck, it's like dictating your day.
Yeah,
your day is no longer your day.
Drinking before 10 o'clock in the morning, you're considered an alcoholic. That's what I was always told.
Right.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why this person waited until 10
right
on the dot and then start. I'm like, holy fuck. So sorry, what did you say, Brad?
No, I was just saying, like there was a lady at the Bears camp that we went to, and she was drinking. I was like, "Oh, they sell beer here?" She's like, "Yeah, you want me to go buy you one?" And I was like, "It's like 9:30." I was like, "No, thank you."
It's hey,
I was like, "I'm good."
I don't know. Pound for pound, what city sports team has the most alcoholics? Maybe Chicago, right? For good reason. So I understand.
There's a reason,
you know what I mean? Like
to forget.
So I wanted to look into the DSM and find what their diagnostic criteria is for alcohol use disorder. So here's what I found. The presence of at least 2 of these symptoms indicates alcohol use disorder. The severity of the AUD is defined as mild, which is the presence of 2 to 3 of these symptoms, moderate, which is the presence of 4 to 5 symptoms, and severe, which is the presence of 6 or more symptoms. And so that is of the following 11 symptoms I'm about to read here. So first one, have you had times when you ended up drinking more or longer than you intended? All right, right out the gate. Fuck you, man.
One. That's one.
That was the first one I read. I was like, fuck you, DSM.
One check mark.
Stand up when you talk to me.
was
Get
like,
the
well,
hell out
son
of
of a
here, man.
bitch.
This is how we're starting. All right, everybody. So everybody go ahead and mark 1 on your card. Go ahead and mark 1. Number 2, have you more than once wanted to cut down or stop drinking or tried to, but couldn't? Oh, like that one. Yeah, I understand for sure. Like you're telling yourself, that's your conscience saying like, hey, I need to stop drinking, and you can't. That has to be, I've had that issue with other substances. I did not have that issue with alcohol as much. I don't know. I think because like for me, my wife had been with me and she was like, you need to fucking stop. You need to slow down. You know what I mean? And I didn't want to listen to her. And so I think, that kind of goes.
I'm 2 for 2 now, so,
Hey, that's okay, man. Those aren't bad odds. Next one, have you spent a lot of time drinking or being sick, getting over the after effects? Number 4, have you wanted to drink so badly you couldn't think of anything else? We talked about. The next one, found that drinking or being sick from drinking interfered with taking care of your home, family, or caused school or job troubles. The next one, have you continued to drink even though it was causing trouble with your family or friends? Next one, given up or cut back on activities that were important or interesting to you or gave you pleasure in order to drink. Again, like the drinking now is like taking control of your life. Next one, have you more than once gotten into situations while or after drinking that increased your chances of getting hurt? Again,
2.
You give a grunt some alcohol, like they'll find a way to fucking hurt themselves. Like I was drinking whiskey out of a mouthwash bottle in Afghanistan, and my roommate and I were talking about how we should take these 50 cals and just take over the fucking country. You know what I mean? Because something happens to you when you drink whiskey out of a mouthwash bottle.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not good, but it's something. You know what I mean? Especially if it's not cleaned out super good. So yeah, that one I was like, that's definitely another check mark. The one after that, continue to drink even though it was making you feel depressed or anxious or adding to another health problem. The next one, have you had to drink much more than you once did in order to get the effect you want, or found that the usual number of drinks had much less effect than before? Next one, have you found that when the effects of alcohol were wearing off, you had withdrawal symptoms such as trouble sleeping, shakiness, restlessness, nausea, sweating, a racing heart, or a seizure? When I read that, now I'm good.
Yep.
But like early 20s, severe. For sure severe. Like
mine has been mild, or the middle one.
What? Oh, yeah. 4 to 5 symptoms.
Yeah.
Like some of these, again, first one, had times when you ended up drinking more than you, or longer than you intended. Yes.
Every
night. Found that drinking or being sick from drinking interfered with essentially your responsibilities. Like, yep. More than once gotten into situations while or after drinking that increased your chances of getting hurt, like fucking all the time. So yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of these. Did any of these really stick out to you guys as being an issue? Yeah.
Not being able to take care of yourself. So does that mean like when you don't wake up for 4 days? Or
yeah, probably.
That's probably a bad idea.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's like I didn't see one of the issues being hitting a bridge at 120 miles an hour.
Yeah.
So it might not be a problem.
Not be a problem.
They didn't say it was a problem. It's like, yeah, dude, like, holy shit, man.
Then, like I said, looking at these, I'm like, I had a problem, but I'm okay. And now you're going down the list, and I'm like, dude, that was like severe, man.
Yeah.
Flying overseas to train in the back of a C-130, and I don't know, possibly.
Oh yeah.
We had a bottle of something, and we were all well, most of us were consuming when we got there, somebody had thrown up in the bathroom, and they're like, we're going to check everybody's bag to find out who has this. So our platoon squad got together and said, every one of you shitheads, take a drink of this, because one of us goes down, we're all going down.
Respect.
Then, then we discarded of said bottle, and no one got caught. Come to find out, it happened to be a lieutenant that got sick in the bathroom.
Hilarious.
Of course.
Of course.
But
And
yeah.
no disrespect. I don't want this to come across as offensive. But when I got in 05, and I had a lot of the guys in the guard that were about to retire. We call that the old guard, because we would get to drill, and they were going after, some of the guys were getting after it at night. You know what I mean? And like one of my first drills with my unit, I had this staff sergeant. I don't know if I should name his name, but I've named his name before. He knew the ins and outs of every weapon system. Like he was this encyclopedia knowledge. You know him. You know him. And he was my squad leader, and he was busted out at rank twice and retired as an E6. So that gives you an idea. I like this dude. Some guys do not like this. I like this dude.
He also knew the ins and outs of most bars in town.
So he got me hammered, and I was like, I don't know, 19 or 20, because this is before we deployed. And he had me wake up, like I went to bed and I woke up and I was in all three of my sleeping systems and I didn't realize it. And so like I was fucked up, and essentially, like, if you're unfamiliar, like the sleeping bag system I had was like 3 sleeping bags, like in one inside the other, and then you could use them for different temperatures or whatever. So like I woke up and all 3 of them were zipped, and I'd open up the first one and it was still pitch black, and then I opened up the third one and it was still pitch black. And I was like, oh, I didn't know where the fuck I was. And I just hear him like, like laughing.
Yeah, and I know that
like
laugh.
Just sitting there watching me struggle.
Yeah.
Like it was encouraged. You know what I mean?
Well, when you toast to the history of the military, you know, the whole unit does a toast. Matter of fact, it's that unit that you were in. Yeah. We did a toast.
Yeah.
And of course, I mean, you're going to toast, and you're a young guy. Hey, it's okay to toast to the past and all my achievements and
and the Marines.
I was just going to say the grog. Have you heard about the grog?
Yes.
At the Marine Corps Ball?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
But not only that, also, well, you know what? Elaborate on that. What is the grog for people that don't know? So
basically, the Marine Corps Ball, there's a tradition where there's like someone in charge, and then you go up and it's basically a mixed up bowl of everything, every alcohol you can think of, just everything. And then basically you get charged with something and they find you guilty. It's like, that's 2 drinks from the grog or whatever. So they like encourage you to drink.
But I would expect nothing less from a branch of the military that was literally founded in a bar.
Right.
That's true.
The Marines were born in a bar.
Very true.
Okay. Alcohol in the military, it's kind of like peanut butter and jelly, man. Like, it's hard to get one without the other, I feel like.
Yes. God, could you imagine a sober military?
Yeah, no thanks.
Oh, that'd be awful.
Yeah, they're working for the government, man. Like, holy shit. You're getting deployed. You're like 20 years old. You know, all you got to do is go marry some girl you just started dating and buy a Dodge Charger with a 25% interest rate, and let's fucking go. You know what I mean?
And then you're ready.
Then develop an alcohol issue. Welcome to the military.
Right.
Here's some statistics and facts also that I found pretty interesting that I wanted to bring up for this episode. So the prevalence of alcohol use disorder, AUD, among the general population. So according to the 2023 National Survey on Drug Use and Health, in the United States, 28.9 million people ages 12 and over, which I thought was a funny age to start at, but I get it, had AUD in the past year. So to understand, there's roughly just over, I think, 333 million people in the United States. So that's like just under 9%. So almost 1 out of every 10 people suffers from AUD. Fairly common, right? Prevalence among veterans. So it's estimated that 1 in 10 veterans struggles with an addiction. Alcohol is a common problematic substance for veterans, with approximately 10.5% of male veterans and 4.8% of female veterans struggling with AUD. Alcohol was also linked to 20% of risky behaviors that led to death amongst veterans. This is highlighted by the fact that more than 1 in 3 military personnel are defined as hazardous drinkers. So 1 in 3 are defined as hazardous drinkers. I guess that's a high number. I don't know. It's a lot. A 2018 Department of Defense survey found that 34% of active duty military members reported binge drinking. Binge drinking is defined as consuming 5 or more drinks for men or 4 or more drinks for women in a single occasion. That's a little sexist, right? How come there are only 4 drinks? I don't think that's fair. The survey also found that 6.2% of active duty military members reported 1 or more serious consequence from drinking. Young men were nearly 4 times more likely to report heavy drinking than young women. The 2021 Health of the Force report found that the rates of substance use disorder diagnoses were highest among soldiers under 25 years old. 65% of veterans who enter treatment programs report alcohol as their primary substance of misuse, which is almost double that of the general population. Veterans who abuse alcohol are also at a greater risk of experiencing or committing violence, suffering from negative health consequences, and having a shorter lifespan. Again, that's the most insane consequences. Like, you might die earlier.
Well, I mean, we're talking about alcohol here.
Right.
Yeah, which is true. It's crazy that you can know that and not care.
No, still partake in Jesus.
More than 80% of the veterans who visit a medical facility run by the VA for the first time report abusing alcohol. 27% also admit to abusing illegal drugs, and 7% abuse both. In 2018, 25,000 veterans aged 18 to 25 reported having alcohol use disorder in the past year. And so that was 25,000 veterans aged 18 to 25. Okay. 874,000 veterans aged 26 and older reported having AUD in the past year. Slightly bigger number.
Yeah.
Slightly bigger number.
A little bit.
Almost. You're 250,000 away from 1 million, man. Like, holy shit. Less than that. I'm not that kind of Asian. I'm bad at math. Close to 900,000 veterans. You know what I mean? In 2018 reported having that are 26 years or older. Co-occurring mental health disorders often increase the risks of veterans developing an alcohol use disorder. While common mental health disorders like depression or anxiety can cause people to seek alcohol as a way to cope, post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, is a common condition affecting veterans that can increase the risk of alcoholism. Statistics show that 1 in 3 veterans who sought treatment for alcoholism also struggle with PTSD. So why do you guys think veterans are statistically more likely to struggle with alcoholism than the general population?
So what we just talked about, it's like they make it tradition. You have to drink to do this. You want to keep up. And then also, I think, to forget, I guess, and to normalize, you know what I mean? So like on the weekends, that was our turn to that was our time to turn off, decompress, get wasted, have fun, and then go back to work.
Yeah, I'm skipping around, kind of blending it with the next question, but it's part of the culture. It's part of the culture, and just, I don't know why it is, but it is. Yeah. And I almost think part of it is because of the rigidity of the military. Mm-hmm. Like, you're taking all of these people from all over the country and you're putting them in one place and you're making them get the same fucking haircut and wear the same uniform and do the same thing day after day. And all of a sudden you're off and you get to take that uniform off and you're like, I'm going wild. Yep. You know what I mean? You're just like, I don't give a shit. And already at that age, the military has to prepare you for war, which is just stuff that it's unfair that we have to teach young men and women to be okay with fighting and killing and dying in a war. It's unfair.
And no wonder alcohol is a problem in the military.
Right.
No, absolutely.
You know what I mean? And so you're dealing with all that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're getting ready to deploy. Whenever you're doing team building, stuff like that, like, you're gonna drink because everybody else is drinking. You're all going out to the bars together, having a good time. Would you rather not go to the bar? I mean, if you go to the bar and you're not drinking, you might be the DD, which is fine. You know what I mean? And some guys were able to do that, but not many, I think. Robin, what do you think?
Well, with that, I mean, like you said, we all got the same haircut. We went through the same training. Mm-hmm. And the one thing that you have control over that you can do by yourself was, hey, I can choose to drink.
Right.
But man, that shit's fun. Let's go drink. Hey, let's go play some pool. What's pool play? Yeah, we're going to drink some beer. We're going to play some cards or whatever it is. And if you were the guy that didn't drink and didn't go to the bar, you were kind of shunned. I mean, really, in all actuality, I mean, you kind of you stayed by yourself, and that's where you stayed in the group in itself. And like when I was in, and we go to, we'll say 60 qual, and because I was 60 gunner, yeah, buddy, and we'd get in, and we're underage. Officer comes in and says, "Hey, you guys did phenomenal at the range today. Here's some beer."
Right.
Oh, thanks, man. So we're celebrating.
That's a team building moment.
That's a team building moment because we're all underage and hey, we're drinking cool,
Yeah.
But once you, and you can, for one, you try to, when you're in bad times, you revert to, hey, I'm going to drink, because when I drink, you get that thought that I had a great time last time I drank.
Yes.
Guess what? You were in a good frame of mind when you drank.
Right.
Before you drank. Now, once you get into it, and if you're depressed when you start drinking, guess what? It just intensifies it.
Yeah.
That's not cool, man.
No, that's so well said and really important. And like, as you were saying it, I was kind of thinking about some things and writing some stuff down, because again, it's like sometimes the drinking, the drinking revolved around a good thing. And like those events happen too. And so it makes sense that after your time in and you want that good feeling again, and everybody's gone, they don't live with you, they're not here, they're in some other state, or they're gone. Yeah. What can I do? Oh, the one thing I could still do was drink. And then, like you said, no, you're not drinking because you're in a good headspace. You're drinking because you miss these people or whatever. And now you're more depressed, and it just starts, digging yourself deeper and deeper. So that was super important. The other thing that you mentioned, that you were starting to get into, but didn't specifically mention, that I thought of, is the other fun thing about drinking in the military was sneaking around. Like, it was fun sneaking around to get drunk and to like pull one over on the fucking lieutenant or whoever. You know what I mean? Like, that was fun. Like, the amount of time I drank out of fucking mouthwash bottles, or like we had to figure out, like, you had to be super creative. And I won't say which entity of the government that I was with, but like when I was in the Middle East on one of the deployments, there was a place in town called the Sugar Shack, because that's what it said in big letters on the front of it. And it was actually a longer word, but like a bunch of letters were out, and the only ones that were still on were like the SUGA and Shack. And if you went to, what we would do is we would roll up to the Sugar Shack, 2 guys in an unmarked vehicle, roll up to the Sugar Shack. We would jump out. One of us would have a parachute bag. The other one would have cash. And the dude with the parachute bag would go in and just start filling, because the Sugar Shack sold booze. They're not supposed to sell booze in this country. Okay. But they did because of the amount of Americans around. So this was like a low key situation. And so we would go in there. We'd fill the parachute bag full of cases of Budweiser, like the tall boys. And it was like, I don't know, $20 a case or something, or for a 12 pack. So it was like expensive at the time. And then we would just throw the cash at the dude, jump back in the vehicle, and take the fuck off. You know what I mean? And that whole act of being sneaky just also feels fun. You're trying to like strategically get drunk in the military. Yes. You know what I mean? Like, and so again, it just makes so much more sense on why it hurts when you drink after, because you're trying to get that same feeling, and it's not possible. Graduation
for advanced training.
Yeah.
For getting your 11 Bravo qualification, guy walks into formation. I was not him. We'll just put that out there. He was literally a shade of green, because we were out the night before that, cut messed up.
Oh my God.
And you talk about the drill sergeant's still, you're still not graduated yet. And let's just say his nice shiny shoes got scuffed pretty good before he went to graduation.
Oh yeah. Yeah, buddy. Did I tell the story of what happened at Fort Bragg before we deployed with my buddy Tim, godfather of my kids? I don't remember if I
Maybe.
did or not. Okay, so Fort Bragg was a location. I don't know if it still is. I assume it is. I think they renamed it, but was a location the last soldiers would mob out of, and so you would have this constant influx of soldiers coming in, going out, and then they also had training for like some of the special operations. I can't remember if it was Rangers or SF or whoever, but they also trained out there. And so we are mobbing. We're getting ready to go to Afghanistan. We go to a bar one night. It was like 50-cent beer night, which fuck bars around military bases, right? Because they know what they're doing.
Yes, they do.
And so they had like, it was like 5-cent beer night. I can't remember. It was some ridiculous deal. We go out, we get drunk, we come back. When we come back, as we're walking back to the barracks, everybody talked mad shit to my guy, Tim. Now, Tim and I have been friends since we were kids. I was his team leader, and I'm the godfather of his kids now. He's the godfather of my kids. So, and he's this gigantic dude. Like everybody thought he was a Chicago Bear when he was, when he lived around here, like just one of the biggest dudes you've ever seen, and just solid. And he's a cop up in Chicago. And so people always like to pick fights with him. So we walk by these barracks and there's this crowd of drunk guys, seemingly drunk, and they were yelling shit, talking shit to Tim. And Tim turns around and gets mad, and I get in front of him, and we're drunk. And I'm like, hey man, like go inside, get some rest. It's not worth it. You know what I mean? Let's just go inside. And he's just like, okay. And we turn around and start walking back, and I see this fucking half a brick or rock or something, like bigger than a fist, come through the air, hit him in the back of the head. He turns around. I jump out of his way. Like, I'm like, nope. He makes a beeline towards the huddle, the group of guys, gets in, like starts getting into a scrum with them. I see that. I look back. Almost my entire platoon ran in the barracks. Almost there's like me and like 2 other dudes. We immediately run into the scrum, knowing that I'm going to get my ass kicked. Like, this is not going to play out well for me. I see somebody hold Tim up against the wall. I grab him. I throw him off of Tim, and it's my lieutenant colonel. And he goes, Peterson, stand over there. And I'm like, fuck! Like, I knew it. I got made. I was fucked. We all get called out, the guys that were a part of the fight. Our first sergeant comes out there, and our first sergeant came to us from a Ranger bat, and he fucking hated us because we were National Guard. He hated the shit out of us. And he gets out there, and he's like, and he told me to go grab our medic because it was going to be a long night. And I was like, fuck. And so I was still drunk. I get my medic. I have to wake my medic up and be like, go grab your medic bag. You have to come with us. And our first sergeant ran us around Fort Bragg for hours. Drunk, right? And as we're doing it, the first sergeant looked at me, and he had a southern accent. He was just like, don't worry, guys, I'm drunk too. And I'm like, fuck, man, it's just everywhere, bro. Everywhere. It's just alcohol's everywhere. Yes. You know what I mean? It makes it so hard. It's so ingrained in the culture of the military. Some in good ways, some in bad ways. But it gets way worse, it seems like, as time goes on. It very seldomly does that lead to super productive, great stuff.
I will say, American soldiers are dumb when it comes to being overseas and thinking our alcohol and their alcohol is the same. We were in Germany.
Yeah.
1 beer in Germany is like 5 of ours.
Yeah.
So you got these guys power drinking, and then one guy ends up on the Czech border, and then the first sergeant has to go get him, and it just gets stupid, you know?
Yep.
We had a great time.
Yep.
But the next morning when you see guys that's got 2 IV bags in their arms.
Oh, my God.
And then you got to train. Yeah.
When I was a medic, I had a separate IV stash under my bed for guys that had been drinking, because if we had early mission the next day or whatever, or just PT or just whatever, they would come to my room. I'd give them the IV, and then diesel bolus, not meaning press the gas down, but taking the IV bag and just squeezing the shit out of it.
Yep.
And you would think it would blow veins more often than I saw it do. And these guys would just do that, and they would leave, and they would get out there. One night, and I remember this, and I was actually talking about this at Yang's funeral, a buddy of mine that unfortunately killed himself earlier this year. When I was on that contract with Yang, there was this dude who came to our room one night, because Yang's room was right next to my room, and him and I would drink. And this dude came to our room, and he had a bag of normal saline hanging in his hand, going into his into him. He had an IV set up, and he was like drinking at the same time. I'm just like, Jesus, we're just a bunch of fucking animals. You know what I mean? Like, you see that stuff, and like in the military, you're like, yeah, all right.
You had a bad night.
Thanks to
dude.
party. You
Yeah.
have to be hydrated. Respect. You know what I mean? It's probably a medic, you know? But like, it's hard to get away from that. And again, I'm not saying it's all bad either, because there's the team building aspect of it all. And there's so many good things that you associate with it. It's just sad that it can't stay that way.
Right.
You know? Can you guys share or think of any other personal experiences where alcohol played a significant role in your life, in or out of the military? We've shared some good ones already. I don't know.
I don't think I have any more.
All tapped out.
Well,
We must need to start drinking more.
No, I actually stopped drinking. I don't.
you don't drink at all?
No.
When did you stop?
Like 2019 when I started smoking weed.
Yeah. Good
Yeah.
for you. You just stopped drinking.
I
That's
did.
awesome.
I went from like, I would drink every once in a while. Like I drink at a wedding, but like now I'm like, oh, I kind of want a beer, or I kind of want a drink, and I'll crack it open. I'll take a sip. I'll be like, well, got my fix. And then, and then that's it. And then I don't desire it, or
Only every once in a great while.
Yeah.
Usually it's on special occasions. Have a shot with my brother.
Yeah.
It was his whiskey before he passed.
Yep.
So we have a shot together, and then
Fuck yeah. I get that.
I would say I just turned 50, and I probably did, and not that it's been a problem lately. It's just I've noticed that I've drank a little more being 50 than I had in the last probably 10 years.
Yeah.
But it was never a problem. It was just, well, I'm going to go here, I'm going to have a drink. And because my wife, hey, you think it's okay? Yep. People, I've had buddies of mine bust my balls. Oh, you got to ask permission? No. She's my buffer. If she says, probably not a good idea, because if I get drunk, I might try to fight the Virgin, Mother Teresa. You know,
Right.
it may be one of those nights, or I
Right.
may be the giggliest guy there is. She's the only one that knows really when that happens. She's going to go, yeah, it's probably not a good idea, because, you know, you're going to fight tonight, or you're going to end up drinking to excess because you're trying to have fun, you know.
But the point that you bring up that I like, and I didn't write anything down about it, but it's a good point, is like, I've always heard people say that alcohol, like whiskey, makes you angry or whatever. Like there's like thoughts that, you know, people say stuff like that about how certain alcohols can make you angry or feel a certain way. And in my opinion, I really just feel like it just brings out whatever you have going on inside that you're not addressing. So when there's really 1-2 times in the past, I'd say like 15 years where I drank and it was an issue. And both times, like, my wife talked to me about it. She was like, this was not you, you know, and your wife, your spouse, whoever, they're your best friend, they're your person, they know you, like you said with your wife. And, you know, you just feel the shame and embarrassment so much worse as you get older. You're like, never doing that again. But if I drink, like, so I am a social drinker. As my wife will tell you, I do like the taste of certain beers. So like I'll have, usually if I go out somewhere, depending on how long I'm there, I'll have like 2 beers, maybe 3 beers. If I'm doing mixed drinks, maybe 1 or 2 mixed drinks if I got a ride or whatever. But like usually if I get buzzed, I am super happy. Like I'm giggly, I'm funny, I'm like relaxed. I talked before when we all went to the softball game, or not softball game, the Slammers. Slammers, right? We went to the Slammers game. I don't do well in crowds and groups sometimes. Like sometimes I really struggle with it, especially if it's at a really big event, outdoor event, and there's alcohol or something there. And if I've noticed this, and my wife talked to me about it too, because she felt the same way. Like if I had a little bit to drink, I was okay in a social setting. And obviously that's not great. It's not great that I'm pushing the boundaries a little bit. It's like, in my head now, I'm accepting that it's okay for me to get a little drunk to be in public. That's okay, because that's what I need. It's my medicine. I need it now. Like I just feel like I'm creating some Gollum type shit. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like with alcohol, it's just not good, but that's how it still made me feel sometimes.
That's when you go from drinking 1 or 2 drinks to drinking possibly a bottle of Jim Beam a night.
Right.
That's the problem, is because it's medicine.
Right.
It makes me feel good.
Right. God, yeah, that's scary. Let's see where I was at. Oh, so some contributing factors also to all of this. So genetics do play a role, with genes responsible for up to half the risk for AUD, according to the National Institute of Health. However, the other half of that risk is accounted for by environmental factors, with behaviors such as early childhood adverse experiences, abuse and neglect, co-occurring psychiatric disorders, and co-occurring psychiatric disorders contributing to the risk of AUD. So it's like, yeah. So it's saying that half of it can be in your genes and the other half is your environment. So whatever you were raised around. And I saw that with my mom, you know what I mean? And my wife has had some negative experiences that she's talked about on this podcast. And so, you know, seeing that your environment is so important. I just don't feel like enough people understand how important your environment is for your mental health. Yes. Like, it helps shape you, whether that's your family, the people that are around you the most, like your activities, the things that you're doing, whoever you associate yourself with. It's so true. You're the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with, or whatever the case may be. Like, your environment's everything. And if you come home to a positive, supportive environment, they're not drinking, or you were raised in that environment, then you're probably not going to have a huge issue with alcohol, as long as you're educated about it. You understand it. You know what you're getting into when you try it. If you're raised in a negative environment, like, man, and to see how that can go on for generations is crazy. To think about how your actions can affect your grandchildren. Yeah. Like, man, in a negative way that's going to cause them to go to therapy and do all this other shit because you couldn't get something in check. Like, oh.
I've had to cut off associations with certain people because they weren't bad drinkers. They just drank all the time when we were together. And I'm like, I know what that's going to lead to. Right. I know where I was at before. I have an extreme addictive personality. When I do something, it's never halfway. Yeah. Whether it be alcohol, whether it be the gym, which it's kind of a good addiction, but sometimes can be bad as well. Sure. Or gambling. Right. I've struggled with that quite a bit, which is another thing my wife has helped me with. Anything I do. But I also think addictive personalities, besides being your environment, can come down the line with your genetics, because my brother struggled with some of his stuff with addiction as well. And if it was one thing, he'd stop that, and then it would be another thing. And then, so I watched him go from certain things, but then the people he hung out with they never helped that. So.
How hard was it to cut some of those people out of your life?
When I made the decision, it was the easiest thing I've ever did in my life, but also the hardest.
Because I have to imagine that it felt like a weight had been lifted.
It was, and then you're like, who am I now? I'm not with those people. Those people were the ones that defined who I was, because I hung out with them. So I was a group. I was that brotherhood again, because
that's important.
From 17, I was in football, so there's a brotherhood. In the military, brotherhood. Yep. So then when you cut that brotherhood off of people you hung with, you drank with, you're like, man, who am I now? So I had to reinvent myself in the better. I mean, I will say there are certain things that I still hold back from my past that have they were bad things, but they're now good because I use them for fuel. Go, we're not going to do that no more, because we know where that leads. Right. And I'm not going to pass that on to my kids.
But that's wisdom, isn't it? Because you made the mistake, and so now you're fixing it.
They keep saying it's with age, you get that wisdom, and I think that means I'm getting old.
I was saying, no wonder why you're so wise, dude.
I'm one of the oldest in our group that we hang with in fat.
Dude.
That story you told about?
Far from that.
If you think about it.
Uncle Scott is 130 years
now
old.
We have Uncle Scott. We have Fitz.
Yeah.
Guess who the next one in line is?
No, because we got some Vietnam vets too.
But here's the thing.
Robin's not a Vietnam vet?
No.
Who?
Oh.
Damn, I didn't even get that at first. I didn't even get that at first.
Wow, but I mean the people that are at most of our events or most of the things,
right,
the people that I know. I mean, the Fat family is huge.
Yeah,
and there's people I haven't met yet, which I can't wait to meet them.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, in the immediate people that we hang with, I'm one of the oldest, and it's like I love it because y'all make me feel young.
Yeah.
But then you also make me feel. Some of you guys make me feel great because y'all are walking around looking older than I do because
Jesus.
you guys are like, man, this hurts and that hurts and this hurts.
You do not come across you don't come across as a 50-year-old at all. I don't mean that in a positive way. I don't mean that in a negative way. Not that there's anything negative at all about being 50. I'm not saying that either. But it's just like, I really don't really see age like that. Like for me, it's like, especially in my mid to late 30s, the way I view age is just like there's us and then there's senior citizen home.
Yeah.
Like I'm not like that person's 50. They're old. I'm like, we're all like kind of in the same group now. Like we're going to look like this for like 20, 30 years and then we fall off the cliff and then we're like senior citizens. You know what I'm saying?
I want to look young for a long time and then one day you're going to see me and go, dude, what happened?
Yeah.
I'm just going to be that guy.
Yeah, it happens to Asians really bad. My grandfather was like that.
You were saying that and I'm like,
my grandfather looked like he was like 30 until he was like 65 and then he turned 66 and I Skyped him and his whole face was just like, he's like, Eric, how are you? I'm like, who are you, dude? What happened, man? You looked so good yesterday. It just happens quick when you're Asian, bro. Veteran populations are at greater risk for all types of substance abuse, including alcohol addiction. This is largely due to their position as military personnel and the unique challenges and stresses posed by combat and reintegration into civilian life. Veterans are more susceptible to addiction issues due to the following reasons: combat exposure, post-deployment civilian reintegration difficulties, like those are the two biggest, deployments, PTSD, depression, and in addition, some veterans have secondary factors that lead to alcoholism, such as past childhood abuse and trauma. So like, yeah, there's a lot of reasons why veterans would drink, to include everything else that we just said. Again, it's, whether it's for something good, like we'd mentioned, or all of these other negative things, like you're drinking just to forget, to get away, to be relieved of the pain for a second, and you just don't care what it is, even though it's going to make you feel terrible in the long run. You just want to forget about it right now. Was there anything particular about your time in the military that made you guys turn to alcohol?
I was sick of Japan.
Yeah.
I was just sick of, I was ready to be home. I was sick of my job. Yeah. I was just sick of all of it.
Yeah, you were just frustrated. So it was coming from a place of like anger.
Yeah.
And not good. It was so none of it really came from, was there also the good?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That's
like the Marine Corps balls and stuff. Yeah. And then I've got friends and that was fun. But I mean, like, it was bad to the point where I just like how much I drank, like the amount that I drank. Yeah. Like you said 5 drinks. I was like, dude, that's it.
Right.
Like you said 5 drinks. Yeah. I was like, is that one night or like 5 drinks an hour? Cause like that's.
Well, the one thing I hate when you get out of the military or come back from deployment is they're like, okay, how many drinks do you have a night? And if you know, because here's the thing, they line you up outside of the fucking doctor's office. At least they did when I was there. And then the first guy walks out and he's like, don't say anything more than 2 drinks because then they're going to make you go to another doctor. And then everybody else that goes in there, how many drinks do you have? One drink. You know what I mean? You're crushing cases, bro.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you also in that moment in the military, which is the downside of being sneaky, is you get good at lying about it, which is also not good. You know what I mean?
To everybody and to yourself.
Yeah, definitely to yourself. For sure. What about you, Robin? Anything?
Mine, for the most part, besides before ruck marches, they were all positive. I mean, because it was the guys going out on the weekend,
right?
And besides, going down to the local watering hole and drinking a few, and then getting in a fight with a bunch of Marines and shit because they were there training.
Yeah.
In Campbell.
Yeah. But jokes on you, I don't even know what that word means.
Fort Campbell, Kentucky?
What, training?
Oh, in Campbell. Oh, I thought that was a word. Oh, that's a place.
Like training.
Fort Campbell,
that was funny
Fort Campbell,
too.
Kentucky. That's 101st Airborne. I mean, I know you don't understand them words, but that's okay. We can draw them in crayons for you later.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, I mean, other than that, I mean, I've had positive when I was in, besides, of course, the fighting, but
Yeah.
that was team building, man. We had a great
It's
time
also
doing
team building. Yeah.
Right, I
and
mean-
again, you're going through training that's like making you get ready to fight.
Well,
you
right.
know what I mean? Like, yeah,
Right.
you're going to want to go out and fight or something stupid.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
you know, you go there and you start making fun of each other. Then at the end of the night, you have one guy who was, I guess, sober or the most sober and go,
The most sober, yeah.
hey, dummies, aren't we all here for the same damn reason?
Yeah.
You know what? He's right. And then by the end of the night, we're all drinking together.
And so you go drink together.
Yeah. And again, like it kind of puts it in a positive light at the end of it.
You know,
right?
so then you don't think about that. So then you try to keep doing that when you're home or you're with the people that
Right.
are stressing you out. You're like, hey, if I do this,
Right.
this is going to bring us together.
Yeah.
No, it puts bigger wedges between people.
Yeah, it does the exact opposite for sure. What do you guys think that the stigma is around getting help for alcoholism or AUD?
I don't need help. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
one of those things. I do things. I take care of everybody else. I don't need help. That's the biggest thing I've seen. And I've talked to guys lately.
Yeah.
And they're like, wow, I'm okay. No, you're not okay, man.
It's the hardest thing.
And I know with what I've listened to everybody else's stuff when we're going through stories, and I'm like, when did you realize? I haven't realized anything yet. Like, wait a minute, you haven't realized? You were just, you had issues last week.
Yeah.
You just talked to me last week. Everything was good, but then all of a sudden, what happened? And I don't need help. Can't tell you need it, but one day you're going to have to make that decision for yourself, because when I tell you you have a problem,
Yeah.
me and you're going to have a problem, because now you're going to hate me. I'm not saying it out of anywhere besides love.
Right.
I mean, I love my brothers and I want to make sure they're here for
Yeah.
their kids, for us, we're here together. We struggle together. And the big stigma is we don't need help. We help people.
Yeah.
And I feel like addiction, like, takes control and hijacks a person's brain, where they will just start cutting people off because it allows them to be alone with their addiction. They're going to cut you off because you're asking them questions about it, and they don't want you asking questions about it. I don't want you making me feel bad about this. So they just start doing those things. And on the crisis side, it's always like heartbreaking. And I don't know how many calls I've done at this point. So I'm not calling myself anything near a fucking expert, but like just from the limited experiences that I've had dealing with veterans in crisis when alcohol's involved. It's like, what hurts is when they have no idea this is a problem. They have no idea. Like, either they've completely lied to themselves, like either they know it's a problem and they've just buried it deep, you know what I mean? Or they genuinely don't know that it's a problem. And you're like, I think that I understand why, one of the first steps in AA is admitting that you have a problem. Like, if you don't admit that you have a problem, how are you supposed to work on anything?
Right.
Like, you have to have that really hard conversation and look at yourself and look at your vice, look at the thing that you're doing and say, wow, this is creating issues for me and the relationships that I have. I have a problem. If you don't think that, I look at a guy that's struggling, and I know you were strung out yesterday. And I'm like, bro, what's going on? He's like, oh, I got it. I'm good. I'm good. I got this. And you're like, oh, that hurts. So see this. I'm good. They think they're untouchable. And it hurts because it's like, I can't make you realize it. I can't. It will take something, unfortunately, probably traumatic to happen for you to realize it, because it's like, when I had this veteran that came out of went into the emergency room with they didn't test his blood alcohol level by blowing, they tested it by blood. It was 400.
Oh,
it was 400.
Jesus Christ.
I
don't understand. He was a Marine. You'd be proud. He lived. So I said to the ER doc, I'm like, couldn't this kill him? And she was like, yeah, this could kill him. He got out next day. He's like back to drinking. Like, he didn't get it. I'm like, bro, how do you not get it? How do you not get it?
Some of these young guys, I will say, some of the young guys take a cue from some of us old shoes where, man, what did we do when we were in the service? Man, we drank.
Right.
What did we do in the service? Well, these young guys,
Right.
either were not brought up with it,
Right.
so don't know the negative part of it.
Right.
But when they're in a service, it was all positive.
Right.
Now they're out here, they either come back from a deployment or they got kicked out of the service because of whatever.
Right.
But what's the one thing they go to? Because that was the one thing that was a positive in the military. That could have been the thing they got kicked out for. But it's just alcohol. And I'm the one thing I hate hearing is it's just alcohol. Yeah, just alcohol, and almost ended my life.
Right.
So,
and it has ended lives.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I've had a few friends that have passed or they caused an accident.
Right.
I was in a motorcycle club, and one of our members' brothers ran over another member and his wife.
Oh God.
And they were just going home, and he ran him over and drug him for a while. That was and I'll tell you what, to this day, I mean, I no longer, I love them guys. They're great people, but I don't ride with them no more. Because that was a past life, but I still think of those guys. I mean, it's like, wow. I mean, to have a brother, take another brother's, my brother's life or whatever. That's crazy to think. And that was all because of alcohol.
And like, I'm not saying that nobody should drink, and I'm not saying that alcohol is fucking terrible and all that other stuff. I don't think anybody's saying that. Yeah. But it's just like with anything else, when it gets to the point where it's ruining relationships and impacting your life negatively is when it becomes a problem. And it's hard to set that boundary because lots of people go out and they drink and it's totally fine and there's no issues with it. I mean, I'm big on personal freedoms, right? But you see so many negative things come out of it too. And I feel like maybe there needs to be more education. I don't know how there could be more education though, because it's like there are classes in the military that you have to go to and take. I'm sure the Marines had it.
Like, it's like every week.
Yeah. You have to sit through those briefings, but because they're so boring and you don't give a shit, you just don't pay attention. You don't take it seriously. It's not genuine conversations. If you had veterans in my opinion, going in during the demo process, talking to these guys and being like, listen, bro, I know you think you got the world in the palm of your hand right now. I'm telling you, I thought the same thing. And here's what happened to me. Here's how I almost lost my relationship with my wife. Here's how I almost fucking killed myself. Like, bro, I understand you think you got it, but you really got to be careful. And if you think you got a problem, we got to start working on it now. And there's resources will help you. That conversation would be more impactful to me than watch this PowerPoint. You know what I mean?
You're absolutely right. And you, like you said, you've said this before. You talked about this before, going in and talking to some of these guys, getting veterans to go talk to these guys before they get out.
Yes.
And I think that is one of the best things that I've ever heard, because if you'd have known or had that briefing before you got out, what would life been like for you now?
Yeah.
What would you have been? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, not saying you had any kind of major, but I mean, when you got out, but I mean, I see a lot of guys that, they get out and because of their training, now they're combative when they're drunk.
Yeah.
And law enforcement are having issues because these dudes are trained, man.
And if you already got a death wish, now you're drinking and you're dealing with law enforcement, what's stopping you from antagonizing them to create more of a situation? Because that's what you thrive off of.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Terrifying situation, which is not good at all. Yeah. I also think part of the stigma, in addition to just not admitting that you have a problem, is that, again, being in the military, thinking that you, any problem like that is a weakness.
Yeah.
And that you can't admit any of these faults. That's also a huge fucking problem. But yeah, anyway, so how do you think veterans and their families can work together to support recovery from alcohol addiction? What do you think families can do, veterans and families can do?
Keep alcohol out of the house.
Yeah.
Don't be around it. Don't go places that serve strictly alcohol. Don't make it an option.
Right. I mean,
yeah, it's hard when it's got to impact your life too. I get it. But if you got somebody that's struggling that hard and you love them, you might have to make some sacrifices for a bit. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I don't have any issue with that. If I'm with somebody that doesn't want to be around alcohol or weed or whatever, like, I respect that. Yeah. You know what I mean? I if that's your thing, I totally get it. I don't want to trigger you. That's fine. Thank you for letting me know. So I know that now.
Yeah.
It doesn't bother me at all. What do you think, Robin?
I truly believe that as well. Until you get a grasp on it, stay away from places that have that, man. Luckily, I got on this side of it. Didn't have to go into any kind of treatment. Just a few life-altering things that has happened to me, and I did it myself. I mean, I say I did it myself, but I am that guy that says there is not anybody I know that's a self-made man, because whether I look up to someone helped me through that situation. I say I did it myself, but no, I didn't do it myself. I was helped along the way. I didn't have to go through treatment, didn't have to have any medication, didn't have to go to counseling, but I did it the hard way.
Right. Right.
But I really think until you can get a grasp of that, you got to stay away from it completely. Like I said, this is now 20 some years of not drinking like that anymore.
Right.
Like I said, I can go somewhere now and have 1 or 2 drinks and I'm okay. I said,
but it was a stark difference, stark contrast to where you were before.
Oh yeah. Like I said, they would open a bottle when I walked into the bar of whatever I was drinking that night. And by the end of the night, it would be empty.
Yeah. What I think if you were trying to support somebody that's an alcoholic in your life, a couple of things. The first thing is you have to take care of yourself. You have to take care of yourself, because if you're the main person supporting somebody that's struggling, it's going to be exhausting, I think, for you. And if you're not careful, it's going to get to the place of resentment. And I think that is a scary place to get to. Like hate, love, whatever, those emotions are, I don't know. I don't think they're as scary as resentment, because resentment's going to, I think, do more long-term damage.
Absolutely.
When you are so full of rage at this person that you resent them, you are disgusted by them. This person that you used to love, you are now looking at in a different light, and that gets scary. So I think boundaries are super important. As hard as it is to set, you can't help somebody that won't help themselves. You can't.
No.
And if you think that you can, I feel like you're setting yourself up for pain and failure. You know what I mean? Because you're going to be so frustrated, and then develop that resentment if they don't listen to you, if they don't want to go get help or don't think that they have a problem. Like, you have to take care of yourself. And the other thing is, I think if you're supporting somebody that's an alcoholic in your life and you have boundaries, you cannot feel guilty about those boundaries, because it's going to be hard. And it's going to affect you very much, but you have to hold, I think, to those boundaries too.
I've also seen here, actually, civilian world, I've seen a couple get together. He was a severe alcoholic. He chose to go get clean. And she said, I'm going to support you. I'm going to support you. But then she's going out every weekend drinking and stuff like that. Well, that's not supporting him.
Right.
Now this guy has nothing but hatred and resentment for her, when she's supposed to be the person who's there for him, to protect him and save him from his vices. And I understand you can't completely shut your life completely off.
Right.
But don't kind of throw it in his face. Well, I'm not going to stop drinking just because you want to.
Right. Now making him feel bad about it.
So now you're making him feel bad about bettering his own life.
Yeah.
And you're the person that married, loved, honored, whatever you want to call it. No, it's not supporting him. I mean, it's actually almost triggering him to go out and want to drink.
That is another problem that I do see a lot too, is people that aren't supportive enough of those that are choosing to not drink.
Yeah.
Again, you don't have to make them feel bad. You have to make a deal about it at fucking all. It's like, you're not drinking? Okay, moving on. You know what I mean? Like, it's not a big deal. Just normalize it. If somebody doesn't want to drink, does not want to do whatever, it's totally fine. Live your life, whatever you want to do. I'm not even going to go down this to even make you start to feel guilty about saying that.
Yep.
And I know that if you tell me you're not drinking, you're allowing yourself to be a little vulnerable in that moment, because you're saying that there's a reason. And you're not telling us what it is. So I have the opportunity to make you feel better about it by not making a big deal about it at all, or talking to you about it in a positive way, maybe. You know what I mean? But anyway, so also, as far as treatment's concerned, treatment does or can involve counseling, such as behavioral therapy, and medications that reduce the desire to drink. Some people need medical detoxification to stop drinking safely, which can be done at certain hospitals and treatment centers. Mutual support groups have been also help people stop drinking, manage relapses, and cope with necessary lifestyle changes. So other than that, as far as resources are concerned, there are a lot. The VA has plenty. The VA has inpatient residential programs, outpatient programs, groups, virtual groups, everything you can think of. Project Headspace and Timing also has similar. We have our peer support group. We have a non-denominational 12-step group, which is phenomenal. And there's also things like Alcoholics Anonymous and other community support groups. Are there any other groups that I missed out, or any other treatments, any other things that you'd recommend?
Just if you feel you need help, man, reach out. That's I know we have a lot of people to support us.
Yeah.
So in the civilian world, I mean, there's a lot.
Yeah.
And because of being in FAT, I know one person that, you don't have to go to, you don't have to peer group at first, but reaching out to one of us and talking to each, hey man, I need help. Can you help me get along? I don't want everybody else to know. Sure. No problem, man. This is,
dude.
This is, and it doesn't have to be a big group setting of, I have a problem. It's, hey, can you help? Reach out. Not a problem. We've got enough loving people in our family that I think would help each other out. And that's what we got. I mean, actual groups, I couldn't tell you any other ones besides what you've offered.
Yeah, and the way that you respond to those people is everything, yes. Right? It's super important to not make them feel bad, I think.
Absolutely.
So yeah, it's really important if somebody has the courage to talk to you about it, that you try to be open with that. Other than that, do you guys have anything else that you wanted to add? Anything that we didn't miss, or anything that I might have missed before I get to some listener comments? Close this sucker up.
No,
nothing. Cool.
Very good. So I wanted to get to a couple of comments that came from some of our listeners here. So first one comes from Corey. Corey said, alcohol helps me relax and enjoy myself in situations that are uncomfortable. Unfortunately, I then relax and enjoy myself and don't want it to stop. So I end up drinking more than I should. Yep. We kind of talked about the similar issues that we have. Thank you for that, Corey. This next one comes from Patrick. He said that he used to have to consume large amounts of alcohol to be able to sleep. He was in a vicious battle because of the pain, and it just made me more tired and depressed. I got it under control and was able to manage pain and other issues differently. Love to you, Eric and Brad, and Project Headspace and Timing. Thank you, Pat. And the next one I'm going to read is a little bit longer. So this next one comes from somebody, I'm going to call them Anonymous. So Anonymous said, growing up, my family always drank beer. Since I could remember, there was always a can in either my mom or dad's hand. I watched holiday parties, important celebrations in life, and just an average Friday night get destroyed because the majority was under the influence. Alcohol was the cause of any physical, mental, and emotional abuse I suffered as a child through my adult years. At one point, being an alcoholic in my family was a running joke. You gotta die somehow, am I right? They would say through their drunk gibberish. I will share some stories that altered my life. Once when I was 12, my parents came home from the races. My sister was 1 year old and was with me. Our sitter just left and I went downstairs. I heard arguing that turned into yelling. This wasn't unusual, but what I heard next was what put things into perspective. My mom was crying and yelling for me to call 911 after I heard something hit the floor. I picked up the phone to do as I was told, only for my dad to be on the other line yelling at me to hang up. I could hear my sister crying, so I ran upstairs. My mom was on the floor and my dad was hovering nearby while my sister stood over my mom crying. I saw my dad and I saw someone I didn't recognize. I picked up my sister and ran. No shoes. I just ran. To my neighbor's house, actually. And after I ran into my neighbor's arms, I ran into my neighbor's arms for comfort. The husband only has to ask me, were they drinking? And my last story was my wedding. My mom arrived at the wedding with an hour to spare. I was getting my hair done, reading my vows that my husband and I silently exchanged. My mom was drunk, came up to me asking me why I was crying and why we weren't talking. I gently put my arm up to motion her for some space and to give me a minute. She was angry and left the room, slammed the door and went to my husband and gave him a snooty remark about me. I had to go tell my sister, who was 12 at the time, to go talk to my mom for me and tell her it's my day and I need her to get her stuff together. There's more to how her behavior impacted that day, of course, but alcohol has always been something negative in my life. Nothing good has ever came from it. And now my family has no ties to one another, and we all distance ourselves from her. So yeah, thank you for sending that one in. Again, like we've talked about, God, it can ruin people's lives. It can ruin everybody's life in your life, and it can do damage for years to come.
That was generational trauma.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, really, that's...
Yeah. I appreciate everybody for sharing those with me. And I will end this one with a positive comment, a little review from a listener. Her name is Michelle. I wanted to read this one. And Michelle said, I was meaning to send you a message to let you know what an amazing job you and Brad are doing with the podcast. I'm a faithful listener, and I've enjoyed listening to all your stories. As a daughter of a veteran, I enjoyed listening to your Memorial Day story and thought it was very moving. The Love Language podcast was great, too. I'm so happy that we have this amazing podcast within our community, and I'm proud to say I know you. Keep up the great work. You and Brad are the best team. Great job, and thanks for making me smile. Some days I struggle, but you both have helped me, so please give Brad my best. Thank you very much, Michelle. Again, man, always makes you feel good.
That's awesome.
I love hearing
man.
that. So please, if you listen today to today's episode and you have any thoughts, anything that we missed, anything that you wanted to add, feel free to reach out to us on the I'm Fine podcast page or go to our website at Project Headspace and Timing and send us an email. But other than that, on today's episode, we talked about alcoholism and alcohol use disorder. We talked about what it is, what the diagnostic criteria for AUD is, why we think so many people struggle with it, our personal struggles with it, and some things you can do if you or someone you know struggles with it. Robin, thank you so much for being here today, my friend.
Thanks
I
for
love
having
you.
me on,
It's
man.
always good to
Appreciate
see you, dude. It was great. Brad, it's always the best.
It
Love
is the
recording
best.
with you, my friend.
It is.
Well, thank you. Thank you for being here. 172nd best mental health podcast in Cambodia.
In Cambodia.
So until next time, I hope that we helped you go from being freaked out, insecure, neurotic, and emotional to truly being fine about finally putting that bottle down.